I've been out of high school for a long time now. I graduated in 2007, so that means it's been about 17 years, I think, since my senior year of high school. And for any of you that might not be familiar with who I am, I'm currently 35 years old. I am a kissless, hugless virgin. I'm unemployed, and I live at home with my mom. And at this point, at my age, and I'm bald too, so as old and bald as I am, and as big a failure as I am in my life, it's just over for me at this point. Like, I really don't even have any hope left at this point. But when I was in high school, I think I actually had a lot of potential. And some of the mistakes I made back then, I didn't realize it at the time. I mean, I had no idea how much this shit would matter in the future. But some of the mistakes I made all the way back in high school, it was those mistakes that set me up for the miserable future life I'm living right now. And I made a lot of mistakes. I have a lot of regrets. But in this video, I'm going to tell you about the biggest 3 regrets I have from my high school years. And whatever you do, if you're in high school right now, please, for your own sake, do not make these same mistakes. I'm telling you, you probably don't even realize it now, but you need to listen to this. So, the number one regret I have is that I never participated in any extracurricular activities. I didn't play sports and I wasn't in any clubs. And I can't say for sure that my life would have been drastically different if I played baseball in high school or whatever, but I do think it would have, at the very least, given me a better chance at making some friends. Or even if not that, just being on a team might have tricked some girl into thinking I'm actually cool or something. And I've talked about this a lot on this channel, but for those of you that don't know, I am a super high inhibition individual, which basically just means that I'm really shy. I have really bad social anxiety. But I also, for a brief period of time, like for my junior and senior years of high school, I actually got to be pretty good looking, I think. Like, there were times when I'm pretty sure an attractive girl was interested in me, but I just was never able to do anything about it because of how shy I was. But anyway, I just think playing sports or even just participating in robotics club or anything at all, at the very least, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing. Like, even if it doesn't actually help at all, it probably won't be a bad thing for you. And trust me, whatever else you'd be doing during that time, like smoking pot or playing video games, that stuff is 100% definitely, for sure, not gonna help you in any way. So you're better off playing a sport. It'll help you stay in shape and you might see some improvements in your social life. Even though, yeah, for a guy like me with how shy I am, it probably would not have helped much, but maybe it would have. I don't know. And like I said, you have a better chance of making friends or whatever at baseball practice than you do playing Fortnite alone in your bedroom. So, as much as I doubt it actually would have made a significant difference in my life, it's still a major regret I have because I do think on some level, being in some kind of regular group activity like that, on some level, that would have at least given me more opportunities for something to happen that could have changed my life. And for me, it really is all about opportunities. My social anxiety is so bad, I know I could pretty much never actually initiate anything myself. So for me, my best chance at seeing any kind of change in my life is just by being around in the right situation for a magical opportunity to just happen to me. And I know that sounds pretty unlikely for something to actually happen like that. And I agree, it probably wouldn't happen. But again, you know for a fact you're wasting your time playing video games or whatever else useless, nothing activities you'd be doing otherwise. So you're just better off doing some extracurricular activities. And another thing you might not realize when you're young, I know I didn't, after high school, you're not going to get a lot more opportunity to do any kind of group activities like that. Like, technically, you can probably find an adult soccer league or baseball league, but it's not going to be the same, and you might not even be able to find that, depending on where you live. And just think if you wanted to do something like football, for example. Well, you can forget about that after high school. I don't think there's any kind of recreational adult football league out there. I mean, maybe in big cities, I don't know, but I doubt it. So, Yeah, not playing sports or participating in any after school activities. It sounds kind of cliche, but it is one of my biggest regrets. And if I could go back in time, I absolutely would play at least one sport. Probably baseball, since that's the only sport I was ever even close to mediocre at. So, yeah, this next thing, this is probably my single most biggest regret I made in my high school years. Maybe even the biggest mistake I've made in my entire life. And ever since I first started this channel, I've thought about making a video just to tell this one story, but I kept going back and forth on whether or not I think it's actually interesting enough for its own video. And by now, I'm pretty sure most of my viewers won't believe me anyway, because this is the kind of thing that just doesn't happen to most people. But it really is true. This really did happen to me. And it led to one of the biggest regrets of my life. So here's what happened. So first, keep in mind that I was actually pretty good looking for a short period of time, and the main thing that put an end to my reign of Chad lightness was the fact that I started to lose my hair when I was like 19 years old. And without hair, I am ugly as sin. Like, I'm easily sub 5. I got a weird looking head. I mean, that's the main problem. I have a very weird looking head, and my head is very small as well. But anyway, in my senior year, I was actually pretty attractive. And this story I'm telling right now, this is one of the reasons I know I was attractive, because this happened to me. So, in my history class, there was this girl that sat in front of me, and she wasn't like super hot or anything. She was like average looking, I guess, but she wasn't fat, so that alone puts her in the above average category. But really, she was nothing special. And she also had a really bad reputation. Like, she wasn't popular at all. And she was known to be kind of, she got around. And I remember she would always get in random fights with other girls for no reason. She was just kind of your typical trailer trash hoe. I mean, I guess that's really the best way to put it. So anyway, sometimes in class she would turn around and talk to me, and I pretty much just wouldn't say much back. Because of my social anxiety, I would pretty much just nod or shake my head or just give short responses anytime anybody asked me a question. So it's not like we were even having full on conversations or anything. I just remember occasionally she would turn around and talk to me when we had free time or the teacher was out of the room or whatever. But yeah, I never thought much of it. But then one day in class, and actually I'm pretty sure it was before class because she did this when nobody else was sitting near us, but she turned around real quick and just said, "I want to fuck your brains out." Then she immediately turned back around. And she was very nonchalant about it too. Like, she wasn't even trying to say it seductively or anything, she just said it casually. But yeah, so she immediately turned back around after she said that. Then she turned right back around and said, "No, I want to fuck your mind out." Then again, she immediately turned back around. Like, she didn't look at me waiting for a response or anything. I don't know, it was really weird. And she didn't say anything else to me after that either. So I kind of thought maybe she's just messing with me because it was just so weird how she went about it. And you'd think she would have at least like not turned around immediately after saying it. You'd think she'd at least wait for a response. But I don't know. So anyway, the next day at school, she either wasn't there or maybe she just left the room for a second when this next thing happened. But I remember she was not there for this. But the next day in class, and actually I might make a diagram to make this easier to picture, but I probably won't, but I might. But yeah, so the girl that said she wants to fuck my brains out, her seat was directly in front of me, but she wasn't there, so that seat was empty. Then to her right is where her best friend sat. Then behind me, there's a guy sitting there, and to the right of me, there's another guy that sits there. And then behind that guy, so behind me and to the right is another guy. And those three guys were all in the same friend group with each other. And even if I did want to have relations with the trailer park hoe, I absolutely did not want those guys to find out that I had relations with this trailer park hoe, because then they would tell the entire school about it. And thinking about it now, I mean, this is pretty much what the regret is. Now I realize how it just doesn't really matter who would have known about it. But yeah, So what happened was the trailer park girl's friend, who sits one seat in front and one seat to the right of me, she said to me in class, we'll just call her Trailer Park Ho, Trailer Park Ho wants me to ask you if you want to fuck her. And the thing is, in the moment, yes, of course I wanted to. And I mean, at that time in my life, I wasn't completely hopeless yet. So I had no idea that would be my only chance ever at losing my virginity. But yeah, as it turns out, it probably was. So anyway, she asks me this, and I could see that the guy sitting to the right of me, so he's sitting behind Trailer Park Girl's friend, I could tell that he heard what she said. You know, he was listening, and I was just, I don't know. This is just so fucking stupid, but I guess I was just so worried about ruining my reputation and ruining my chances at ever getting with any other girls at my school that I actually would want to get with, that in that moment I made the decision that it wasn't worth it. And so I just said no. And the trailer park girl's friend just turned back around. I don't think she even said anything. And then after class, or maybe it was just later on during class, I don't remember, but the guy sitting next to me actually, he said something like, "You made the right decision, bro." And that was that. So the regret I have is that I didn't just say yes. Because if I had just said yes, or if I had just nodded my head up and down, then if I had done that, then at least I would not be a 35-year-old virgin right now. And who knows, maybe that would have put me on a whole different trajectory in life. And I guess if we want to make this more general for the sake of giving advice, I would say my regret here is that I cared too much about my reputation. It seems so obvious now looking back, but I should have just said yes and had sex with this young lady of ill repute and just not even worried about what anyone else thinks about it. Because in my head at the time, I was just so sure that those 3 guys in my class would tell everyone, and then everyone would have me labeled as being on the same level as the trailer park hoe, which is just a retarded premise in the first place because, I mean, who am I to think that someone else is giving me a bad reputation? If anything, she'd probably be the one hurting her reputation. I mean, realistically, no, it wouldn't have hurt her reputation. Nothing could hurt her reputation since it was already at the bottom of the barrel, but still, I shouldn't have cared so much because it's not like I even communicate with even a single person from my high school at this point. Like, at worst, that reputation would have only stayed with me for 1 more year. So, yeah, I guess I'd say don't let your fear of having a bad reputation keep you from doing something you want to do, because you might never get a chance like that again. So, my third biggest regret from high school is that I just held on too much to my sense of morality. And I do still have certain values that are important to me, but at least now I do realize deep down that it's all a cope. But either way, certain things like I just refused to lie about pretty much anything back then. And that usually didn't matter because I didn't really have anything I would need to lie about, or, that's what I thought until this one thing happened. So, one thing to know about my high school, and maybe you could already assume this just from my accent, but pretty much everybody at my high school was Christian. And I was raised Christian too, but by the time I was in high school, I just didn't believe in that anymore. And I was never one of those militant atheist guys, I think that's pretty cringe. And I don't really care what anyone else believes either, unless they're being annoying about it or something. But anyway, it was kind of something that made me feel like an outcast, even though nobody else knew I wasn't a Christian. I knew, and that made me feel like an outcast anyway. But then one day, some guys in my class were talking about Jesus or something. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about, but this one guy asked me if I was a Christian. And at the time, I knew I should just say yes. Like, I knew that that would be the easier option, but I don't know. I just had something in me, and it's still there to this day, although I will fight it if I have to. But back then, I just couldn't bring myself to tell a lie about myself like that. So this guy asked me if I'm a Christian, and I said no. So then, immediately, him and the other guys in the conversation all got really interested, and they start asking me all these questions like, Well, what do you believe in then? How do you think we all got here? And stuff like that. And I don't remember what all they asked, but I was pretty much just like, I don't know. I don't believe in anything. And when the guy asked, how do you think we all got here? I just said, I don't know. Actually, I remember saying, I don't know to a lot of their questions. But yeah, and they weren't even like they weren't being mean about it. They just seemed more like they're just fascinated to come across an atheist in the wild. Like I'm some kind of exotic animal at the zoo. And those guys were actually always pretty cool to me, even after that. So I guess they didn't really care that much. And I don't know how much anyone else cared either, but what happened was one of those guys, for like weeks after that, whenever I would walk into a room, this guy would just randomly tell anybody around that I was an atheist. I remember one time the football coach, who was also our teacher or whatever for weight training class, he walks into the locker room and this guy just loudly is like, "Hey coach, loser maxing is an atheist." So he just told the coach and all the other guys in our class that I'm an atheist. And the coach asked me a couple stupid questions, like pretty much the same kind of stuff the other guys asked me before, like, well, what do you believe in then? And who do you think made the world then? And stuff like that. But that was just absolutely brutal because this was in front of everyone in my weight training class, which was, I don't know, like 20 people at least. And I just gave my same basic responses like, I don't know. I don't believe in anything. And then after that, for the rest of my high school career, and to be fair, this happened senior year, I think, so it wasn't that much longer. But for the rest of my time in high school, people would randomly come up to me like I'm some kind of exotic animal and just asking me these same retarded questions. And I mean, it's funny because admitting that I'm not a Christian was probably worse for my reputation than fucking that trailer park girl would have been. But ultimately, there was just nothing to be gained by telling the truth in that situation. I should have just lied and said, yes, I am a Christian. Because, I mean, why not? I literally don't believe in any divine sense of morality or anything like that. So why does it matter if I tell a small lie to make my life easier? Nowadays, I would lie in that situation, but even now, I do have that internal sense of like, I don't know what it is. I feel guilty if I lie like that. And the funny thing about it is, I'm pretty sure the only reason I feel that way is from having these certain morals drilled into my brain at an early age at the Christian school I went to as a kid. And then, the thing I end up needing to lie about is about how I'm not even a Christian. I don't know. It's a cruel world, and my life is a tragedy. But yeah, those are my top 3 biggest regrets from high school. And I don't know if I'm even going to post this because I think I really went off topic, and I don't know if this is even interesting, but maybe I'll just make this a Patreon exclusive or something. I don't know.